If you have an LLC, sometimes you might need to change the address. Maybe you have moved or the company has moved or something happens. So in today's conversation, I want to explain to you step by step how to change an LLC address. So here are the steps I really want you to pay attention to. The thing is that to change your LLC address, you need to complete some follow-up paperwork, whether you are changing a PO box or a street address. And the cool thing is that if you have to actually start things as soon as possible, because there are some other implications that will come into effect. For instance, you might need to actually change your the paperwork also at the bank. If you have a credit card, if you have a business loan, an open business loan, or an open business line of credit, you need to also update those records. So the first step you need to do here is that you need to determine whether an address change is necessary at all. Because the thing is that you could be like, you know what? In my situation right now, I need to change the address. But when you look at it, when you look at things thoroughly, you could probably just need to have a slight change in records, but not a permanent change in address. Okay, so it's important to determine, therefore, whether an address change is necessary. Officially documenting your address change may not be necessary if you are opening a second location, but continuing to operate out of your existing address. Let's say right now you actually started. Let's say you started in New York, right? New York City. You had a location for your LLC in Manhattan, and you open another one in the Bronx, or you went to Queens, or you like basically as long as you have a primary location and you're trying to have an ancillary or peripheral location, you do not need to change your official address. Okay, you just need to have a primary and secondary address. And so the purpose of having an address on file with the government is so that they can contact you or find your business. So when we talk about changing an address, if you are still reachable at your existing address, you likely will not need to go through the follow-up paperwork. Remember, when we change the address, you will need to actually start receiving paperwork at your new location. Things like if you have a registered agent. So everything has to be updated. So this is really important to determine whether or not an address change is necessary in the first place. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. So after determining whether or not an address change is really necessary, you need to notify the right parties of your address change. So when we talk about notifying the right parties, there is a constellation of stakeholders that want to know where you are at, literally. Okay, so if you have decided changing your address officially is necessary, there are a few government agencies that you need to contact in the first place. Number one, IRS. This is important, right? You need to file something called a Form 8822B with the IRS to inform the agency of the new address change of the responsible party for your business. If your business has an employer identification number, EIN, you need to file Form 8822 when one of the following changes. For example, if you have a business mailing address change, if you have a business location change, if the identity of the responsible party has changed, or if your home address has changed also. Form 8822B must be filed by mail, not on irs.gov. So you need to actually follow the instructions you got to go to the IRS website. You need to follow the instructions at the bottom of the form's first page to determine which mailing address to use. There is a way to update your address using a tax return, but filing Form 8822B ensures you get this done in a timely manner. So this is number one, IRS. You also need to really contact state authorities when it comes to like the business agency. So the state business agency must be informed also. A good rule of thumb here is to update your address wherever you file your LLC's formation documents. So you have to remember, creating an LLC consists of filing paperwork with the appropriate state agency, usually the Secretary of State. So this paperwork is called the Articles of Organization or Certificate of Formation, and it includes a primary physical address for contact purposes. If this address changes, you will need to file articles of amendment to change that information with the states, or follow up your state's protocol to change the address another way. If you filed your LLC paperwork and had to create a profile on an e-filing website, you may need to update your address on that platform as well. And nowadays, starting January 1st, 2024, you will need to contact also FinCEN if there are changes in the beneficial ownership of your LLC. Boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to change an LLC address. So besides the IRS and the state business agency, you need to actually also inform other parties here. So number one, you have state tax agencies. So we're talking about the agencies, the tax agencies at the state level, at the city level, or at the county level, and in some cases at the municipality level. So when we talk about state tax agency, you need to understand if you're separately registered with your state's Department of Taxation, Revenue, or Economic Development for tax purposes, do not forget to update your address with them as well. You need to contact also state licensing agencies. So if you acquired any special business license for your LLC, such as a bar license for a law firm, you'll likely need to update your address with the agency responsible for the licensing. The same applies for, let's say, if you're a CPA, you're a certified public accountant. So anytime you need a license from a state licensing agency, make sure that you update them as well. You also need to think about the registered agent. So every LLC is required to have a registered agent that keeps track of important legal and tax document deliveries, and your registered office address is that of your registered agent. So if your registered agent is a separate entity, in other words, not an employee or member of your LLC, you do not need to update this address. Registered agents often can scan and send this mailings to you virtually, but you'll still have a physical address on file. So make sure you update your physical location with your registered agent so any original documents get to you in a timely manner. So it's important for you to actually, again, it's all about keeping transparency with your registered agent so that if there is a problem, not a problem, if there is I would say an urgent matter, let's say a lawsuit or some kind of deadline that is approaching real fast, you can be contacted as soon as possible. Okay, it's all about transparency. So just kind of recap here. So when we talk about notifying the right parties of your address change, you have the IRS, number one. You have the state business agency, number two. State tax agencies, number three. State licensing agencies, number four. And registered agent. Step number three, you want to update the relevant forms with your new address. The thing is that depending upon the sector in which your LLC operates, there are some forms that you need to update. The most important forms you'll need to update are your IRS forms and state formation documents. Okay, that's what I just spoke about earlier. Other important documents you created when you started your LLC should be updated as well, including your operating agreements and any insurance policies you're established. Now, I want to really take a moment to really talk about insurance policies because depending upon the industry you're in, some insurance policies are more prominent or more important than others. So, for instance, if you are in the healthcare sector, there are some important policies that you need to have on file. Or if you are in any sector that is I would say, quote unquote, a little dangerous, then you really need to make sure that you abide by all regulations and the standards at the state level, but also at the federal level. The point I'm trying to make here is that when we talk about LLC form updating, you need to understand what kind of jurisdiction legally and from a regulatory standpoint you actually fall into. So you want to make sure that you comply with regulations and standards not only at the state level but also at the federal level. Because see, the thing is that when you actually create your LLC, you are actually filing an application with the state authorities, right? But the thing is that once your LLC starts operating, you're going to have to actually comply with state laws, but also federal laws. And again, as I said, with the new law coming into effect, the FinCEN, the Corporate Transparency Act of 2024. I mean, the law was enacted in 2022, but it will go into effect in 2024. You will need to actually comply with edicts and regulations at the federal and state level. And so when we talk about you operating you updating your insurance policies, you also need to you need to update any contractual obligations that relate to the insurance policies. For example, if you have some kind of bonding, happening here, you want to keep those you want to keep those updated as well. Boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to change an LLC address. The next thing you want to do here is to inform relevant parties of your address change. So any other agencies that you interact with regularly will likely have an address on file that you should update. Remember, it's all about you being transparent here. If you want to be informed, if you want to be notified in real time, you want to actually inform whatever stakeholders that you are dealing with. For example, financial institutions. Banks will send statements to the address on file unless you have enrolled in paperless billing. Additionally, if you have a business credit or a debit card, it may be linked to a physical address. So you want to contact your bank or credit union or update your address on their website if possible. So financial institutions, number one. You also need to think about USPS, the U.S. Postal Service. So changing your address with USPS also allows mail from anyone to be forwarded to your new address for a set period of time, usually 6 months, while you inform other individuals and institutions of your address change. So this is a temporary arrangement, though. The USPS will not actually accommodate a permanent arrangement like this. So the thing is that it's very simple to change your address using the USPS Movers Guide for $1.10 identity verification fee, or visiting your local post office to get started. So you want to really do things there as soon as possible here. So besides financial institutions, USPS, you also have vendors. If you purchase wholesale items, software, or IT services from any vendors, you will need to update your address on your account with the vendor. It's all about transparency. I just want to really insist on that. And the same applies to customers. Have a customer list with email and phone numbers. Send a mass communication letting your customers know you have moved and any other changes that come along with that, such as parking policies, hours, tax considerations, or even new features of your location. Also think about your social media and online presence. New and existing customers need to know how to find you, so you want to update your listings on search engines, Google My Business, for instance, review sites, for example, Yelp, your own website, social media sites, Facebook or Instagram, and any other online presence you have. Also think about physical signs. So to cover all your bases, place a sign at your old location, letting any person know, and especially in-person visitors, like you have moved. Without this signage, you may lose a couple of customers who will assume you have closed for good. Let me give you a bonus here. So when we talk about LLC address change, you need to understand that, to change your address with the IRS, again, very simple. You need to file Form 8822B. Or you can just wait when you file your tax returns, either at the business level, your Form 1065, or when you file your individual tax return, your 1040 at the end of the year. But that could be a little too long. So if you want to have things done real fast, it's just a lot better to file Form 8822B, just to fill it out by hand or by typing and mailing it to the appropriate address, which can be found again at the bottom of the first page of the form. And so if you want to change the address of your EIN, the same thing happens through Form 8822B. Now, one thing I need to say here is that it's important to understand that the IRS will not affect any changes unless they receive a signed form from a responsible party. In other words, the form must be signed by a party that is responsible, that is actually registered as a responsible party for your LLC. Because the IRS is very strict when it comes to updating taxpayers' information without having the appropriate signatory. So be very sure that when you actually send paperwork to the IRS, that any paperwork that is asking the agency to change your records is signed, and is not only signed, but it's signed by the appropriate party. Okay. And this applies to all kinds of changes, including any changes that you want to be affected on Form 8822B. Based on our experience, what we have seen in the last 25 years is that if you send a Form 8822B to the IRS, it's just a lot better to contact the agency once again to follow up, to make sure they have received the form and they are working on it. So in other words, it really does help after filling out the form and sending out to the agency to call and just inquire. Let me actually talk exceptionally about how to change a business address in California. We have had, as we were preparing for this show, we have had a lot of questions around that topic. So we wanted to just address it in this video. So a helpful rule when changing your business address in any state is to do so through the same channel as your LLC formation. So for example, to start an LLC in California, you need to file formation paperwork with the Secretary of State, including articles of organization and something called a statement of information. So both of these documents include your LLC name and address. So to update your address, you want to start by visiting the Secretary of State website to amend your articles and statement of information or update your address on your online portal. So there may be a filing fee associated with updating your address depending on your state. So if you are in California, yes, I think it's about $45, but they change those fees all the time. So the process of changing an LLC address, it's not complicated at all. Okay, it can be time consuming though, but it's not complicated. Okay, and the thing is, you can actually you can outsource this task to a third party for you. In other words, if you have no time to do the address change yourself, you can just have a virtual assistant service or a registered agent do this with you. Not a problem at all. And it's just important to understand that you're going to need to update your LLC address with your Secretary of State. You know, if anything else fails, you need to at least update it with the Secretary of State and then with the IRS. Most states require you to file paperwork with the Secretary of State to start an LLC. So again, it's just better that you actually contact them, the authorities in your state, to make sure that all information is updated. Some states have specific change of address forms for you to submit, so you don't have to formally amend your articles of organization. And this makes it easier than if you were changing your business name, which really would require you to amend your formation documents in most instances. So everything again depends on the state you're currently in. Maybe your state has very flexible rules when it comes to amending things like articles of organization or amending your business name, business address, and so on and so forth. So first step here, either drop us a question in the comment section and we'll get back to you. But when you drop us a question, please notify us of the states where you actually are writing from, so we have a clear idea about which rules will apply in your case. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I was just talking to you about how to change an LLC address. So I give you the steps and then I give you a bonus at the end. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll speak to you another time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.